Today, we're going to be looking at a pretty interesting topic, and that topic is the cost of doing business. Now, one of the things that we see is that many rising stars get into business, and often you underestimate the cost of doing business. And just let me expand on this just a little bit. Market intelligence is vital for the success of every business. Your business is doomed to fail in the absence of market intelligence. Market intelligence comes at a cost. What exactly am I referring to as market intelligence, and how do you get market intelligence? Today, some of the things that we will be looking at is going to help you to have a high level overview of not only market intelligence, but so many other business related issues that you need to learn, apply, and master when you want to be successful in business. And let me give you some statistics. In 2021, what we have seen is that 20.8% of business startups fail. Why? Limited market intelligence and so much more. Second, we have seen in 2022, 40% of business startups fail. Again, limited market intelligence. Last but not least, we've also seen in 2023, 49.9% of business startups fail. The reason we are hosting these programs is to provide you, the rising star in business, with enough information so you're able to avoid making the common mistakes that so many rising stars in business make. So to join me in today's conversation, I have a team of dynamic personality that will be helping me to navigate this conversation to ensure that you are in the win. Starting a business is a high net worth investment. And if you don't start thinking like a high net worth investor, you're doomed to fail. With that, I want to invite my colleague. I'm going to invite, first of all, Paul Whitehouse. Paul Whitehouse is a financial specialist. And while he's going to talk about the challenges that many rising stars in business are faced with in terms of accessing capital, at the end of it, he will say to you, you are approved, because he's able to ensure that you access the much needed capital to grow and scale your business. Along with this, I have Peter Gould-Scott. And Peter, he is the brain behind Legacy Chronicle Human Growth Program. And one of his key focus is to really work with the human resources to ensure that they are optimizing their skills and their chance for success. Along with Peter, I have Clement Frank. And Clement Frank, he is an economist by profession, but he's also a leader by design. And he combined these two skills, and he really worked with you to ensure that you understand economics and you understand leadership skills that you can deploy into your business to win in business. Having said that, I want to welcome you guys to today's program. It's such a pleasure to have you guys. How's the weekend been to you guys?
Beautiful.
Great
Going
weekend.
good. Yeah, going good.
Yes. All right.
Awesome. Now, all right, great to have you guys. Now, what I want to do, today we are focusing, and I want us to do a deep dive into the cost of doing business. And I do believe that very often the cost of doing business is significantly underestimated. And what research is showing, because rising star in business are underestimating the cost of doing business, by default, they set themselves up to self-sabotage and to fail. Our objective here today is to really ensure that we can give a content and a context of information that can really help businesses to make better business decisions. So with that being said, before we go deep into today's program, I want to introduce Paul and ask him to talk to us a bit about financial instruments. One of the things that all businesses need, big and small, Micro, small, medium, and large, they need access to capital. While capital is available, many businesses seems to be somewhat not completely aware of capital or the types of capital that are available. So I'm going to ask Paul to give us a brief walkthrough of some of the financial instruments that we are likely to get from you. All to you, Paul.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you. Well, financial instruments that are available. Equipment financing is available because businesses typically require equipment. Some don't. As a consultant, I really don't need a whole lot of equipment. I'm sure there's a few others that I just can't think of right now that really don't need equipment, but I'm going to go ahead and say 95 or more percent of businesses need equipment. Dump trucks, bulldozers, semi trucks, large pieces of equipment that you bolt to a factory floor to manufacture goods and products. So that's all equipment. We offer equipment financing for you through equipment leasing, and we do that through a network of lenders. Okay, real estate financing, commercial and investment property, got you covered there. And both of those two things, equipment financing and real estate financing, can be accomplished with any level of credit. Okay, excellent credit, obviously, you get the lowest cost of money, best deal structure, and best of everything. And that's what we do at Patriot Business Finance Consultants is ensure that you get the lowest cost of money and the best deal structure. Okay. But let's say you got difficult credit and you were declined by your bank last week and you feel hopeless. Don't feel hopeless yet. Give us a shot because our lenders are not banks. They're specialist lenders. Banks have a certain criteria, and if you're 1 point below their minimum credit score, they're going to have to say no to you. They don't have a choice. But the lenders that we represent, they have choices. It's their money. They put it out there. So, in a lot of cases, zero credit score, you can get approved for financing. Sounds great, right? What's the trade-off? Well, it's not cheap. It's more expensive, obviously. So startup businesses, more expensive. Difficult credit, more expensive. Um, there's some things that don't require your personal credit to be good, only your client's credit to be good. That would be factoring, that would be purchase order financing. So we got you covered on those. Okay. Raising capital for a project. When I say raising capital, I'm talking about raising investor money. That's available to you. On the subject of what we're going to talk about today, the cost of doing business, some forms of financing don't require you to put money down. Some. Factoring doesn't, purchase order financing does not. Equipment financing, typically you're going to have to put the first payment up. You got to put the first payment in advance with good credit. With difficult credit, you might be looking at a 15, 20, 25% down payment to get the equipment financed. So, but that's the forms of financing that we offer. And I guess we'll get a little bit deeper into the cost of doing business and how it relates to financing as the show goes on.
Exactly. Now, what Paul has done here, because many of you might say, yes, there's a heavy cost to start and scale the business. To do business in the right way, it's important to recognize that there's a cost for human resources, there's a cost for technical resources, there's a cost for capital resources. Now, you might want to say that, hey, I can't reach the capital cost. And I want to say to you that that's not the absolute truth, because what Paul has just done, he has given you a menu of financial instruments that you can access to cover the cost of doing business so you don't have to struggle through this process. All right. So I just want you, our listening audience, to recognize the heavy lifting that we are doing for you to ensure that you get this kind of information so you can win in business. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to say. In starting a business, it is necessary for you to do the necessary due diligence. The mistake that you don't want to make is to start a business with an assumption that this is the cost, only to recognize that halfway into that business or three-quarter way into that business, there are essential things that you should have looked at that you did not look at. One of the first things that we talk about when we are working with Rising Star in business to really get you on the right path is to get you to start thinking about what is your MVO, because we see you make a mistake here too. You go to market with your maximum viable offer, meaning that you have multiple great ideas that you're playing around with, and you go to market with that, forgetting that you have limited human resources, limited technical resources, and limited capital resources to move three, four, five projects forward at the same time. That is the reason why we say you need to master your MVO. And by your MVO, I mean the 1 in 10 factors of brand selection. You either go to market with what we call your minimum viable offer, which is your lowest hanging fruit, or your maximum viable offer, which might be your highest product or service that is appealing to the middle or the upper class target market. Why am I advising you to do this? I'm advising you to do this because you want to focus on one thing. Because that one thing you're now focusing on, the limited human, technical, and capital resources that you have, you can now put all of those resources to that one product. And what it does is give the product a greater opportunity to be elevated upwards. All right. All of your resources, now that you have taken the time to build out this brand, you now have to focus on the next step. So you have built a strong brand. You have identified the ideal client's needs, wants, and expectations. You've aligned your product or service to the needs, wants, and expectation of the ideal client. What's next? There's a cost to what we call visibility. And visibility, what it means, you have to build out your communication content for radio, for television, for newspaper. And there's a cost for doing this. So you have to research your content. There's a cost. You have to produce the content. You have to pay the advertising copywriter. You have to place the ad into radio, television, newspaper, social media, independent communication platform. There's a cost for doing all of this. And I'm emphasizing all of this because if you want to cash flow your business within the shortest possible time, but you're not thinking of these things, you're going to struggle to cash flow the business. And when you struggle to cash flow that business, guess what you're doing? You're putting a chokehold on the business potential to cash flow. And that in itself is going to cause that business to fail over a period of time. Because if you don't get to reach the ideal client, if you don't get to cash flow optimize, the business starts to hemorrhage. As we go deeper into this program, while the program in itself is not targeting startups in business, we will talk to startup to show startup how you can create either vertical or horizontal partnership and still position yourself to access all the funding types that Paul has to offer. So I'm going to pause here for now, and I'm going to reach out to Frank, then I'm going to come over to Peter to share with us about, from their respective field, what are some of the costs that needs to be looked at to elevate a business upwards. Frank, all to
All
you.
right, thanks, Gary. Starting a business can be an exciting process. We all know starting it costs money. When you're determining business startup costs, one thing you have to be sure and note that it's important to be realistic. Things like office space, legal fees, payroll. You may think of business credit cards. There are other organizational expenses that can really add up. So if you're thinking about launching a new business, one has got to understand the startup costs that he or she might encounter. And here's how much cost you will likely need to start your company or small business. It is feasible to start a business with a small initial investment, with as little as 100 US, depending on what it is. For example, if you're starting an online shop or freelance service, you likely won't have many upfront costs. But other businesses like the brick and mortar shops or those two employees, they can cost thousands of dollars, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. One is for location, then you have your inventory, you have payroll, equipment, you may have to pay rent and more. According to the US Small Business Association, most micro businesses cost starts around $3,000, and home-based franchises cost between $2,000 to $5,000. Now, while every type of business has its own financing needs, the experts have some tips to help you figure out how much cash you require. I was looking at Drew Gerber, who is the CEO of the Wasabi Publicity PR firm. And he estimates that an entrepreneur will need 6 months worth of fixed costs on hand at startup. So what he's saying is that you need to have a plan to cover your expense in the first month. Identify your customers before you open the door so you can have a way to start covering those expenses. Now, when planning your cost, never underestimate the expenses. Remember, they can rise as the business grows. It's easy to overlook costs when you're thinking about the big picture, but you should be more precise when planning for your fixed expenses. Indeed, underestimating costs can decimate your company. One of the main reasons that most small businesses fail is that they simply run out of cash. Writing a business plan without basing your forecast on reality will often lead to an unfortunate and often unnecessary business failure. So without the benefit of experience or actual historical financials, it's easy to overestimate a new company's revenue and underestimate costs. So how do you plan your startup costs? You need to start small. Most likely, you have high expectations for your company. However, if there's blind optimism, it will cause you to invest too much money too quickly. At the very beginning, it's smart to keep an open mind and prepare for issues that may arise later. A prospective business owner should start planning a small business by simply understanding the potential of the business idea. What this means is not assuming your idea will be successful, and the best approach is to test your idea in a small, inexpensive way that gives you a good indication of whether customers need your product and how much you're willing to pay for it. If the test seems successful, then you can start planning your business based on what you learned. The second point is understand what type of costs you'll have. There are various types of expenses to consider when starting your business. You need to differentiate between these costs to properly manage your business cash flow for the short and long term. According to E.L. Shinar, who is a former CEO of Fundbox, which is a cash flow management company, he says that there are a few types of costs for new business owners to consider. And the first one he says one-time versus ongoing costs. One-time costs, one-time expenses versus ongoing expenses. One-time expenses will be relevant mostly in the startup process, such as the expenses for incorporating a business registration, and so on. But if there's a month when you must make a one-time equipment purchase, your money going out will likely be greater than the money coming in. And this means that your cash flow will be disrupted that month, and you will need to make up for the following month. I have a business with a vehicle, so all the time the vehicle's going good, but there comes a time when you need new tires. Something may go wrong with the engine, and I find that in that period when the vehicle needs to be looked at, the amount of expenses for the repairs and services, though it's a one-time thing for now, it's costly. And while it does, it eats into your other costs, your other expenses. So this means your cash flow can be disrupted. And so you will need to make up for it the following month. Ongoing costs, by contrast, are paid on a regular basis. That includes expenses such as your utilities. And your utilities do not generally fluctuate as from month to month. Then there's essential versus optional costs. Essential costs are expenses that are absolutely necessary for your company's growth and development. Optional purchases should be made only if the budget allows. If you have an optional and non-urgent cost, it may be best to wait until you have enough cash reserves for that purpose, for that purchase, according to Shinar. Then you have the fixed versus variable costs, and I'm bringing economics into here. Fixed expenses such as rent are consistent with month to month, whereas the variable expenses depend on the direct sale of products or services. And there's a reason that comparing the best credit card processing providers is important, because the processing rates are a variable cost that you want to regulate or regularly review to ensure you're getting the best deal. Shinar noted that when you have fixed costs, they may eat up a high percentage of revenue in the early days, but as you scale, as you scale up, the relative burden will become negligible. So what are most common startup expenses you have? It's important to understand that there are different types of costs you'll have as a new business. When you look at it theoretically, it's good to take note of what costs are fixed, what costs are variable, what costs are essential, and what costs are optional. But let's go and get real. I off my head, I can think of a short little cost you likely have as a new business. The first one is what we're doing here, web hosting and other website costs. Then you'll have rental space for an office furniture, of course, labor. Then you need basic supplies. You may have to get a basic technology or computer, whatever. Of course, insurance is important here. License or permit fees, advertising or promotions, and business plan costs. And I have to state licensing or permit fees because I work with a revenue, which is similar to the IRS. And there are certain licenses that you need to take out as a business owner for your startup. Then there are typical costs for startups. For example, no organization will have a similar cost, and that I'm going to state right now. For example, rent. I can give an average cost of some business having $2,750 US per month. Then there's website designing and hosting, may cost another 2,000 US. Of course, you'll have payroll. So if you have like 5 employees with a $35,000 a year salary, that's $175,000. Then you have your advertising and promotion, whatever the PPC buys in your sector, which is another $5,000. Your basic office supplies, which is paper, pens, and so on, is minimum of $80. So when you you calculate the total of it annual, it can come up to like over $184,000 to $185,000. So what you need to do, therefore, is project your cash flow. And this is another critical aspect of a starter's financial planning. William Brigham, who is the director of the New York Small Business Development Center, which is in Albany, he advises new business owners to project their cash flow for at least the 3 months of the business's life. What he's saying is add up not only fixed costs, but also the estimated costs of goods and best and worst case revenue. He further states that if you borrow money, make sure you know not only how much you borrowed, but also the interest that you owe. Calculating these costs puts a floor on the revenues needed to keep the business viable and provides a good picture of the cash necessary to start up. Now, this is an essential step in maintaining a business financial health. Without being realistic about your cash flow and debt, you will not be able to get your business off the ground, especially as other costs begin to build. And what Garber recommends is starting a business without borrowing at all, if possible. Because he says he believes that borrowing puts a lot of pressure on any business and its owners, as it leaves less room for error. He's not saying here, mind you, that you should not borrow. But if you can afford to start the business without borrowing, and it's possible, do that so that you'll take the pressure off of you as a new business owner. So you need to do your best to explore all of your funding options. If borrowing is your only option, then you work closely with the lender to ensure your business is financially able to handle the commitment. You need to keep in mind that when it comes to small businesses, personal assets are often on the line. And once you get your business going, which can connect directly to your bank account, you can use QuickBooks, an accounting software. There is also another called FreshBooks. And all of these can connect you directly to your bank account to track your expense throughout each month during tax season. You need to figure out your financing methods. So once you have determined your costs and projected your cash flow, you will need to consider how to pursue financing. How you obtain funds will affect the future of your businesses for years to come. Personal savings, which is loans from family and friends, government and bank loans, government grants, are just a few potential funding sources. And many companies use a combination of different sources. Herndon Davis, he says that additional funding can come through establishing business credit and different lines of credit through piggybacking scenarios. He also says that there are also small business loans and angel investors willing to step in at certain stages. At this point, your startup should show established clients or customers growth since inception, a unique positioning in the marketplace, and a clear business plan on how to grow with the additional funding. And when I see angel investors here, I smile because I think of Paul as an angel coming in to save you. Well, how much cash will you need? So, as we've stated, the money you need to start your business depends on all various factors. If you're opening a brick and mortar store with expensive rent, it requires high quality equipment, might cost hundreds of thousands, more than offering freelance services with no initial investment. So before pursuing your business, analyze your potential costs and determine whether you're financially ready and committed to the journey of entrepreneurship that you desire.
Wow. Well, that was a lot, Frank. You've made a number of great points, but as you speak, I can reflect, sometimes you start a business and you get excited with the cash flow projection. But one of the things that we often talk about is that in doing a business, yes, you want to project your cash flow, but it's important for you to understand what are your expenses. We call them income expenditure on your balance sheet. Because very often when you measure the income against the expenditure, it leaves very little or not much at all in the balance sheet. I think also what is important here, I mean, starting a business, you want to know that you're doing your market stress test. Doing be rising to the occasion to be able to do your market stress test is going to really help you to be informed about the business potential to cash flow. We see that many businesses get started. You take a debt, as Frank is warning you against that, and you leverage that debt into the business without doing your due diligence. And there's several things that we talk about when we are talking about stress testing your business model. You want to take the time to understand who is your ideal client, the size of your market, the viability of your market. You want to know that you can access your ideal client. You want to know that you are reaching an urgent and immediate need. Can you imagine starting a business and you just didn't take the time to identify if your product or service is going to reach an urgent and immediate need? It is that awareness that is basically going to help you to understand the urgency of the ideal client to invest with you. If you stress test and you build out the right relationship along the line of where you're stress test, and you're going to have better information. We call it market intelligence. The last point that I want to make here, you can do all of this, but guess what you didn't do in the stress test? Is to identify if the ideal client has the ability and the willingness to pay for your products and services. You can set up a beautiful shop, but if you don't have the right intelligence, the business is not going to cash flow the way you want it to cash flow. So Paul can allocate capital here to you because he has good intention. He want to help you to grow and scale your business, but because you are not doing the due diligence, and there's a cost for doing all of this, you take the capital and it's mismanaged because you didn't have the right information. There's a couple of things that I want to say just before I come across to Peter. While a lot of the financial model that you're going to get from Paul is not necessarily set for business startup, it is set for businesses who are in operation. I want to say that at business startup, you're not exclusive because there's a number of creative best practices that you can adopt. One of the things that you can do as a rising star in business who don't have historical financial data, you can engage in what we call a partnership. A partnership can go vertically or it can go horizontally. Now, what that means, you're establishing a business working relationship with businesses that might have had 5, 10, 15, 20 years in business. So because you have that partnership, they give you an endorsement where you assume their financial history. And because you have their financial history and positive track record, guess what? Every financial institution wants to do business with you. But to be able to achieve this, you must be good at what you're doing. And that's why, again, you need a strong MVO. You need to stress test that MVO. And you need to have the ability to sell and communicate very clearly to your partner that your proposition makes a whole lot of sense. And with that, the sky's the limit. Frank, while you were talking, one of the things that I recognize that people need, and you're in this field itself, people need to learn, apply, and master negotiation skills. Because with the ability to lead in negotiation skills, instead of going straight into debt financing, they can negotiate equity financing, and guess what? They're not obligated to that monthly debt obligation because they have equity partner, and the equity partner is helping them to cushion them through that entire startup phase. So that was a great share. I want to come, Peter. I know Peter has the CAP formula that really helps people to get a deeper insight in terms of how to manage that startup phase. So I'm going to ask Peter to walk us through some of those strategies.
Yeah, Gary, and thanks for the opportunity to communicate these values to our listening audience, because you have a lot of individuals out there who want to get involved. They have this passion that they want to take to the marketplace, and sometimes they do not know where to start. So programs like these give individuals some inspiration. As a matter of fact, when I was starting out about 10 years ago, it is programs like these that I was able to tap into to really begin to formulate what the value we had to take to the marketplace. And as we're talking about cost, and Paul mentioned, one minute, guys. Just Paul mentioned a while ago that there are virtual individuals who operate in the virtual world, individuals who operate like a consultant. While there might not be a cost in equipment and real structures that cause the business to thrive, there is a big cost that is essential for individuals who are going to really succeed. And that big cost for individuals to succeed, especially in the online virtual world, is the perception cost. Because now you have to prove, without a practical product, without a product that can be touched, you have to prove that this product, this service that you are presenting to the marketplace, it is viable and it is life-changing and it will bring impact to individuals. So that in itself becomes real, as much as it cannot be touched, but it becomes real because now you have to tap into the psyche of your audience, the psyche of your prospective customer, and to prove to them psychologically that what you have is good and it will bring transformation into their life. So there is the perception cost. Then they have to take into consideration that they have their own personal life, even though they may not be out there in doing business in the brick and mortar world, but their personal life. And every business, every entrepreneur has to deal with this. You have to understand that there's a cost just to get up in the morning. You have to breathe. You got to do life. And so you have to do analysis, a check, an inventory of, and everybody's personal life is different. So each individual have to cost, what does it cost for me to be alive on a day-by-day basis? That has to be with my tastes. What kind of a car I like to drive. Some person would just be interested in driving just a Honda. Somebody else, their taste is a Escalade. Whatever the cost is for that individual to carry on their day-by-day basic life, that has to be taken into consideration, because you got to live even as you're doing your business operation. So to deal with that, what we have come across, and because our services has to do with the virtual world, and they enable to get individuals to get into or to get across their message and to break the barrier of the perception cost. How do you give that perception? Individuals operating in the online virtual world, we come up with what we call the CAP formula. which stands for consulting, coaching, author, public speaker, and publisher. And we get individuals to understand, as using your one of your terminology, Gary, the high net worth individual. You're in the virtual world. You're standing here or sitting here behind the camera. How do you communicate your perception that you are what you say you are, so that the market can trust what we are presenting? So the CAP formula is what we use to do that. And that product, we had to decide how much it was going to cost and realize that this is, as you mentioned again, Gary, we had to look at our minimum viable or medium, and our CAP formula is one of our maximum viable offer, which is a $50,000 product, because what we do is not only to get an individual to become an author of their books, to bring their thoughts to the market, but then we realize in order for them to present their book as something that is viable, then they will have to be able to have a certain presentation. They have to present themselves a certain way in the marketplace, so that their audience, their prospective audience, will want to buy the book. So we said, look, you have to be positioned as a consultant. You have to come across to your audience in a very authoritative way that you can consult. And even Frank mentioned it, I maybe mentioned it earlier, that in you getting into the marketplace, then the value that you're taking out into the marketplace, it must be something that people would say, I want that. It must be analyzed that you want that which you are presenting. So how do you do that? You have to have a sense of authority. And when you can have that consultant, as you mentioned here, to package your communication in such a way where you speak amply, you speak in a way by which individuals can see that you are not just saying something, but you are speaking with a certain level of know-how. You're not just guessing. An individual is not just guessing. So with that, we're able to say you got to package yourself in a newsletter. Not just to say that you can, but package your information into a newsletter. And that newsletter now can be distributed as a download, so that individuals can have a taste of the idea that is being presented in the marketplace. Now that there is a line of cost that comes with that, because now graphic software is needed. You're going to need the Adobe software. In our case, we're going to need to be able to do the editing software. And these are the costs that are involved as we distribute. And then we got to let individuals know that, okay, to break the perception barrier, you have to be able to speak. And you have to be able to stand on a stage. And so we have what we call now the summits, summits that we do every 3 months, quarterly summits. And for the person to stand as a speaker, and they are now communicating their value, they will put them in an atmosphere that is, it is beautiful, an atmosphere where they can be seen as a professional, communicating their message to the audience. And then there has to now be the publishing, the whole experience of publishing on social media, all the various platforms that there are. So all of these coming together so that individuals can break the perception. They can get across whereby the perception of their value is embraced as something that is worthwhile. They can be trusted. They can be seen as individuals of authority. And while an individual may think that standing behind the camera is just the thing to do, and they do not have the weight of the brick and mortar world, but the perception is just as challenging. The perception to get across, the perception for people to really gravitate to what you have to say, And so there has to be some even alignment as this, where you got to now get into other person's fields, somewhat of what we're doing now, where you can share the stage with other individuals, and there are costs involved in doing these kinds of activities as well. So let me just say, so the perception, the personal cost is individual coming into the virtual world. You got to understand your personal cost. You got to understand what it costs you for people to perceive you in the light in which you ought to be perceived, in order for you now to have come across to your pricing, which is going to bring about the kind of profits that will cause you to be viable in the marketplace.
Yeah, thanks for that share, Peter. I can wrap up a lot of what you're saying there into personal branding. And there's a major cost of personal branding that has that positive play on the corporate brand. A lot was said. I take away, a lot of from what you say. You talk also about shaping public opinion, and there's a cost attached to shaping public opinion. I want to just reflect back just before I come to Paul, back on something that Frank would have said earlier. Frank made a very strong statement, which is perhaps if you're doing an online business, you can perhaps start with, as low as $100. And I think that that is a strong statement, because the possibility exists with just with $1, $2. There are some of these virtual platforms that definitely give you a play. They allow you to get a storefront with as little as $1, $2 down. So that's definitely a good statement. But I want to add something to Elstered. While you start a business up in this way, it's important still for you to recognize that there are added costs. Um, Peter just talked about the shaping public opinion, and shaping public opinion, it comes at a heavy cost. All right, because you have to produce uh, content. All right, social media content. And if you are not the expert in the SEO, if you're not the expert in tagging, if you're not the expert in title search, you may have to also hire an expert here to help you navigate the virtual world. And the inability to do that, although you get an excellent start based on what Frank would have said early on, that start could be significantly compromised because you get a start, but guess what? You're not able to amplify visibility. Because you're not amplifying visibility, you're not reaching the ideal client. So you're not able to make impact. You're not able to client convert. And if you're not client converting, you're not able to cash flow optimize. If you don't cash flow optimize, the business fails after a period of time. So, Frank, I want to thank you for really pointing out that statement, because it is a true statement. But I just want to come alongside you to say that there are additional costs, there's a real cost of doing business, and you should never underestimate it. And let me conclude by saying this, and then I'm going to come to Paul. One of the things that we are actually forced to do, and I was talking about it only recently, is to do a proper analysis on the clientele base that we are going to be interfacing with. Because there are clients that will come to you, and because they are underestimating the cost of doing business, you can actually predict that they're going to fail. One of the things that we advise is that rising stars in business, you need to make realistic budgetary allocation to move the business forward. Frank talked about the issue of cash flow projection. He talked about the business plan. I want to add a few other things. We can add cash flow game plan. All right, that is essential to move your business forward also, because you may have these plans, but if you don't have that strategic game plan to amplify the cash flow, the business can fail. And there's a cost for doing all of this. There's a cost for doing all of this. And when you underestimate all of these costs, you collapse. So there's a couple of things that I want to say in conclusion. Frank would have also mentioned making budgetary allocation for 6 months. I want to push it to say make budgetary allocation for 1 year. Because while we may be able to cash flow your business within 3 to 6 months, we know we can do it within 2 months. Guess what? It is important to still take into consideration the overall cost of running that business. You have administrative cost and you have operational cost. All right. You may be cash flowing, which is good, but it may take you some time as a rising star in business, a new beginner. It may take you some time to ensure that you're cash flowing enough to cover all overheads and still make a profit. One of the things that we have learned in business school is that it takes about 5 years to break even. 5 years to break even, which that what I was saying is that all the monies that you're pumping into that business, into research, into product innovation, into market testing, and all of this, it takes about 5 years to recuperate from that whole process. So if you're getting into business and you're getting into the business with a mindset to cash flow into cash flow now, you have some challenges. But there are ways in which we can really help you, depending on your business model, to cash flow and cash flow fast. The critical point that I want to talk about here now, before, and I'm going to hand over here to Paul, is that regardless of how high that cost is, we can help you with it. Now, in our platform is not just helping you to access the capital, because on this platform, what we talk about a lot is understanding financial portfolio, understanding how to access, understanding smart capital leverage, and understanding debt mitigation. So there's 4 additional things that's going to come alongside you here, or 3 additional financial concepts that will come alongside you as you now access capital. So you're really able to drive the cash flow possibilities of this business like no other can, because of the strategic support system that you're going to have behind you. So with that being said, Paul, can you chime in here a little bit? Because whatever the cost is to start and scale that business, once they have the right partnership, once they have the right historical financial data, we can fund them. So can you talk to us a little bit about the high and low of access to capital, and perhaps what are some of the pre-qualification criteria? All to you, Paul.
Thank you. I'm going to jump right into that. I just want to throw 3 things as to what you guys are talking about. Okay. A professional capital raise to build a $39 million business. Here's 3 essential parts of that. When you're dealing with like that, a sincerely, seriously professional capital raise, imagine a box. Everything that you need is placed into the box. Nothing is left out of it. That's the ideal, perfect way to do something. And I know it's not an ideal, perfect world, and sometimes we have to bootstrap and make things happen. Absolutely. I've personally done it myself, and I got a story to tell you a little bit later about that. But a professional capital raise for a $39 million capital raise includes 1 year's worth of raw materials. You've got the cash to buy. You don't got to sweat it. You don't got to worry about, am I going to be able to buy raw materials next month? Because you raised it, because you have it. 2 years operating expenses. You don't have to worry about the lights going off or anything else, because you've got the money. It was part of the plan. It was part of the professional plan. And cash reserves. Cash reserves are important. Emergencies come up, things happen. And I'll tie that into what I'll just tell the pizza shop story real quick right now, and then I'll jump into your question. I had a pizza shop when I was younger, and I went into it undercapitalized, almost nothing. I had enough money and it was owner financing. So I had enough money to give the guy what he wanted so I could take over. And then what did I do? Before the week was over, you're supposed to get supplies once a week. No, I'm driving to the pizza shop headquarters. The guy who sold it to me, because he had 31 pizza shops, he made the sauce. So I could go there and buy. I went there and I had to scrounge and buy things out of his inventory. And thank goodness he was good enough to let me make that happen, and he understood. But that's what I had to do. That's bootstrapping. And that's not ideal. I wish I didn't have. I did it, and it worked out for me until the point where I had unexpected expenses in my personal life that came up, and then the amount of money that I had saved for the business, I had to spend it on that. So yes, we have to go into things undercapitalized sometimes. Sometimes it's the only way to do it. You have to make something from nothing. We have a term for it, guerrilla warfare, right? You got to make it happen when you've got nothing. And I did it, and a lot of people do it. And a lot of people do it and pull it off successfully and elevate themselves into strong cash flowing businesses, because that is possible. We're not saying that it's not possible. What we are saying is it's absolutely not ideal. Uh, okay, so jumping back to your question about the financing, the highs and the lows, the high, an existing business, and the term time in business is a financial term. It's important. If you have, and it's more than 3 years plus, if you have time in business, if you have, if you're cash flowing and you can afford to take on the new debt, you can take care of that monthly payment, and you've got good to excellent personal credit, here's what that looks like. For equipment financing, you're putting the first payment down, maybe two payments, the first and the last. Those are called advance payments. You always have to put the first payment down because you're getting the equipment. You got to pay in advance. That's easy financing. Let's go to the furthest end of the scale, a startup business. Okay. Let's take this another level. A startup, if you have a startup business with a pizza shop, you're going to have cash coming in every day. You'll be able to make the payment at the end of the month. Let's talk about a pre-revenue. I got a real life deal to tell you about. Pre-revenue cannabis company needs to borrow money. We're pulling the money out of the real estate. Okay. What do they want in return to say yes? Well, he's not going to have cash flow until he takes 3 months to grow the crop. Then you got to chop it down. Then you got to dry it and process it. Then you've got to ship it to the buyer. So what does that look like? That looks like 5 months without getting paid. What is that? So what's that going to say on the term sheet? Well, if he didn't have real estate and it was a total startup and he was borrowing everything, he'd have to put 30% down on the equipment if he needed equipment. If he was buying the real estate, every time you buy real estate, doesn't matter good credit or bad credit, you're putting money down, 20% minimum, maybe up to 35%. And then you've got the problem of no cash flow. So that term sheet would say 30% down for the equipment, 25 or 30, 20 or 35% down for the real estate. And here's what else we want. We want 12 months of the 12 of the monthly payments paid in advance, put in an escrow account so that the lender knows they're going to get paid every month. The lender does not want to come in and take the equipment back. That's the last thing they want. They want you to make the payments, all the payments, close the transaction, right? But the worst case scenario is you got to put 12 monthly payments in advance, one chunk of money down in an escrow account so that you can pay the lender. There's
For well,
yes, sir.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. Just a quick question: what is the actual cost for to fund a project like this? And are your funding source able to provide total funding?
There is no total funding because there's always money down.
Yeah, you gotta get some skin in the game,
Yeah,
some equity down.
there is no such thing as 100% business financing in the world of business financing, other than a capital raise. But you got to pay for the capital raise. Okay, you're raising $39 million. You've got to pay the capital raise team because they need paid for their work. and you need to actually build the business, and that costs money to build the supply chain and to sell the offtake.
Well,
There's
there are also some hacks. I mean, in terms, if you understand business finance, business credit, if you understand and you know to leverage it, there's zero cost to you in terms of accessing it. But that's another subject that we're going to get into later on. But the cost of starting a project like this is like what, $500,000 US?
I mean, it's a range. It depends. There is no
Understand?
exact. There's no exact number. If you're going to build a 60,000 square foot building and crank out the weed to sell it for that type of a project, that's going to cost tens, tens of millions, or up to 50, 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars. But let's go to the smallest end of the scale. You already own the land, and that is the situation with this deal. He owns the farm right now, owns it free and clear. It's worth $500,000. He's got the equipment, but he needs to update equipment. He needs additional building. So what we're doing is we're pulling money out of the property that he already owns. That is a no money down deal because he's pulling money out of something he currently owns. And then he's got to just buy the new equipment because he's not going to lease it. He's going to pay cash for it. That's what he wants to do.
In other words, he's taking out the equity and leveraging the equity to get the funding to move that process forward.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the point that I want to make out here for the audience, Paul, is that it doesn't matter the size of the project. We can fund you from $50,000 up to $5, 10, 15, $20 million and beyond to move your project forward. So there's really no excuse for rising stars in business to get started in the right way. You might have a real estate project that you want to jump on. We can fund the entire project. All you need to do is to reach out to us, and Paul and myself will be happy to talk with you and get you the much needed support that you need to grow and scale your business. Man, time flies so fast when you're having fun. It's actually all already. It's past an hour since we are here having fun. All right. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna come to everyone. I'm gonna start with Peter, then I'm gonna come to Frank and Paul, and we all are going in today's program. Peter, all to you, my friend. Your closing remarks.
Yeah, yeah. What we would like individuals to understand, that even as they are listening to this program, is the very best time to start it. Why? Because if the world is in problem, and there is not a better time, or should I say, there has not been another time in which the problems are so diverse. The global landscape, since 2020, it has been, it's as if we have entered into a twilight zone where the norm, discomfort, and the stress around life seem to become a norm. So in that, what now requires is for individuals to understand that they were born to solve a problem. The reason why they are alive right now is because there is a problem with their names on it. And so the challenge that they have to figure out now is which problem has their name on it, and focus on how they're going to come to the solution. Focus on the solution. What are the solutions that there are? And once you have a solution, then you need a place of authority, a place that we do call the CAP formula, by which you now can establish your place of authority. And the CAP formula is what I've seen. The reason why we came up with that is because we realized that every individual who are successful in the marketplace in some shape and or form, even Steve Jobs, that has brought about a product, he sold his product as a consultant. He came out before the marketplace, and with his oratory skills, his ability to speak well and to communicate his message, he presented his vision of a world, and he spoke, and everybody took his advice. People took his advice. So he spoke as a consultant. And then every year, because he keep distributing new product, people will go and they will line up at his stores, because now he is coaching individuals that you need to have every version of my product. You need to have that. So now they submit to them. So the world now submit to his products and services. And the people write about him. There's so much being written about him. So he's even producing books without he himself becoming an author, because he's now communicating his values to the community, and people are taking that and they are now communicating that. Go to YouTube, you see how many persons they are speaking about what Steve Jobs has presented to the marketplace. And then, like I said again, he is a publisher. He's presented himself as a publisher and a public speaker. Now you take that same principle, you apply that to Oprah, you apply that to the televangelist, you apply that to the YouTuber, you realize that presenting yourself as a consultant, as a coach, as an author, as a public speaker and a publisher is one way by which, when you have found your problem that you desire to solve, the problem that you were born to solve, it is the way by which you can formulate your authority in the marketplace and attract your ideal customer to want, to like, and also to trust that which you are presenting into the marketplace.
All right, great share, Peter. The CAP formula. Perhaps we need to take a day and just go into that CAP formula to help our listening audience to get a more in-depth understanding of the CAP formula and what the CAP formula can do to really help them to make smarter, better business decisions. Thanks for that share. Frank, all to you, your closing remarks. You're mute, Frank.
All right, thanks.
Welcome.
I have to say that when you're running a business, there are a lot of stress involved, especially financial stress. But while some financial stress is unavoidable, the right strategies can keep your finance in check to help manage stress. It doesn't make sense that you're running after all the finance or money and your mental health is not intact.
Mm-hmm.
We know that running a business is fulfilling,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a stressful occupation.
Yeah.
Because there are constant decisions to be made, and there's a lot of challenges that you have to solve. So what happened is that there's a lot of pressure to get it all right. That pressure is intertwined through it all as financial. Even if you have a team, you're acutely aware that you have the final say on decisions. And that means either there's a success or failure, which rests on the leader. While there are some financial stresses that may be beyond your control, many are directly or indirectly related to decisions that you can take.
Are you hearing Frank?
Yeah, you hearing me?
I'm hearing you now.
Oh, you weren't hearing me before?
Yes, we were.
Yeah.
Yes, we were.
Please.
Okay.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, while financial stresses are beyond your control, many are directly related to the decisions that you make. For example, cash flow problems, staffing challenges, supply chain issues. You got interest rates and inadequate profitability. These can all be stressful. and they just don't affect you as a business owner. So when a business is struggling, that can have impact not only on you, but your team, your business partner, and it disrupts your personal and family finances. So strategies have to be implemented to minimize the financial stress, right? When a business runs into cash flow or other financial problems, it can be tempted to think that a business loan will solve the issue. So you're digging a hole to fill a hole. A loan is almost never the best and or the only solution, according to, if I'm pronouncing the name properly, Caroline Comier, who is an assistant vice president of business restructuring. And so what she is saying is a loan is almost never the best and or the only solution, because according to her, the snowball is just going to get bigger and it's going to be harder to get out of it. Paul and Peter knows a snowballing. As it rolls, it becomes bigger. So Mayor says that good financial management is the best way to avoid financial trouble before it becomes a source of stress. And I'll just go through the heading. She suggests the following strategies. Limit your personal financial exposure. Know your business financial situation. Manage your debt. Make your banker a partner, which is very interesting. Your bank can be one of your most powerful allies, she says, as long as you're transparent about your situation. And some financial stress is to be expected. But she recommends stress management strategies, which includes getting enough sleep, eating a balanced diet, exercising regularly. I'm talking to myself about exercise, and create work-life balance. So what she underscores the value of spending time away from the business, right, guys? Time away from the business, doing activities you enjoy with
We'll keep trying. We'll keep trying,
bring
Frank.
you joy. So, but the thing about it, entrepreneurs are not alone.
All right.
So many are all experience the same thing. So acknowledging the struggle can really help dispel the myth that you're not supposed to feel the way you do.
Frank, you made a lot of great share there, and you add some humor to it. I love the statement that you also made, but what I want to add is that good financial management starts long before you take the debt. I think what a lot of rising stars do, they take the debt and then they try to figure it out. Now, there's so much that I want to say on the financial matter, whether should take the loan or not take the loan. For me, that's subjective. It depends on the project and how the project is cash flowing, and it depends on the loan, the cost of capital, and your ability to mitigate all of that. But I still believe for persons that is not familiar with the financial world and is just taking the debt simply because they want to take the debt to offset the cost, perhaps it may not be the right thing to do, because taking the debt is much more than taking the debt. You need to understand the instrument, you need to understand how to leverage, and most of all, you need to understand how to mitigate that. One of the things that I often talk about is that when you understand debt mitigation, you have control over the cost of capital. Frank is smiling because there's so much to the subject matter. But I really love the shares that you would have made. I do believe they are valid, and I really trust the listening public is taking away a whole lot from what is being said today. Uh, Paul, all to you now, my friend. Your closing thoughts on what we would have talked about today and the cost of capital. Can you give the public the assurance that they are approved, they can come to us, they can get the capital, whether it be 50,000 or $50 million? US dollars we're talking about here to move their vision forward. Can you talk to us a little about that?
You just hit
Can you
all,
give them assurance?
yeah,
Yes.
well, you just hit all my bullet points right there. So awesome. We think alike. Okay. Money is available for your business. You are approved, and help is available right here, right now with this team. And don't wait, act now. Okay. Creativity is a very vital thing. And I think sometimes creativity is lack because if you get declined from the bank, you might think, oh, it's over with. I'm not going to get approved anyway. That's just not true. A bank is one source. And remember, your bank is only going to do what they can do. They can't step outside of the bounds. The loan officer has no authority to say, if you're 2 points less than the minimum score, he can't approve you. It's over with there at the bank. What are your, but always know that there are options out there. Okay. What are the options? What's creativity? What's guerrilla warfare? Guerrilla warfare and being creative is finding it when you can't see it. You know it's there, but you got to go get it. How do you get it? Well, that's what we help you with. A lot of creative ways to do it. Okay, number one, when I say you're always approved, you are. If you got outstanding, good to excellent personal credit, time in business, and you're cash flowing, you got the best of everything right there. And you know, and I know that you know that. If you're listening to me right now, you know that. Okay. And Patriot, by the way, Patriot Business Finance Consultants, we're going to do it better than the bank. We're going to get you the least expensive money and the best deal structure if you meet the criteria that I just described. If you do not, let's say you got difficult credit, but you want to get that duplex. You need equipment, you need a new dump truck for your business because business has, skyrocketed and you need more equipment to fill that need, but you got difficult credit. The solution is, and here's the truth, the facts, so don't get hurt when I tell you this in person. If you got difficult credit or you're a startup, money down will be required to get approved. Now, what if you say, I don't have the money down to put down on the new lease? Let's find it. Let's talk so we can give you information on how to get it. And what I would say to that, and what I 2, 3, 4 times a week, I say this to people. Who loves you? You got family and friends who believe in you? I mean, I'm not saying bring them a bad idea and help them to lose their money. I'm not saying that. But if you have a solid business and it's been going good for years and something happened, you just took a little dip in credit score, well, you've got a track record. And sincerely, if you got I know you got to, there's somebody out there who can help you. There's always somebody out there that can help you with what you need. And in the case of getting approved for an equipment lease and you don't have the money down, somebody out there's got it. And if they believe in you and love you, they might give it to you. You got to pay them back, and you're going to have to pay them back that principal plus a little bit extra. Even if they say, no, I don't want you to just give me the money back. I don't want interest. Give them something extra because they took a step for you. They pulled $30,000 out of their house and gave it to you because you're their cousin, their brother, their sister, their son, whatever. They took a risk, but you're always approved. You just got to be able to meet the terms of the approval. But if you don't think that you can do that, don't give up. Keep looking. Somebody's out there. Sometimes it requires taking on a business partner to give you that extra capital that you need. But there's more ways than you believe. There's 360 degrees in a circle, so you literally have 360 angles to look at a problem from. Don't stop after you've looked at it from one angle. You got 359 more degrees to take a look at it from.
Paul, you're perfectly correct. I just want to take a little bit from what you said and a little bit from what Frank would have said, and I'm going to give my closing remarks. Paul is perfectly correct when he says that there's a lot of creative financing available to you. For example, you may be able to set up an LLC and set up the LLC in a manner that you can issue shares. All right, you can issue shares. You can set up an LLC or an INC, and simply by doing this, you can raise capital. You can raise private capital. All right, because you're now a limited liability. The other thing that I would have heard Frank spoke about, and he's perfectly correct about this. Perhaps as a rising star, you are not ready for debt. Perhaps you're not even ready for equity. But perhaps you might be just the right candidate for creative financing, meaning start a project and you can hit the ground, you can hit the road, and you could raise the much needed capital to move a process forward. Now, this is something that I admire. There are many institutions that I may be a part of, and I see that some guys will just come into that group, and they say, listen to me, we got tickets. We got 100 tickets. We got 200 tickets. And guess what? The ticket cost a couple of hundred US. But those guys will sell out those tickets in a short period of time, generating thousands of dollars. That speaks to me of good social skills, good leadership skills, good people skills. And perhaps this is something that you need as a rising star in business. All right. And we have built out programs that can really help you to build the people social leadership skills that you need to achieve your level of success in business. So that's my last words. I want to say thanks for the public for coming and being a part of this program. I see a number of persons would have dropped into the room. Um, Thanks for coming and showing up. I want to encourage you to continue to like, subscribe, and share, so you will be the first to get these programs that we are bringing to you on a regular basis. I want to thank my team, Peter, Frank, and Paul, for being here today. These guys could have been doing anything else, but they have chosen to come out here and support and add value to this platform. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys and just wish you guys all the best for the rest of the weekend that is in front of you. And as Frank would have said, take some time out, get some rest. I'm going to try to do that. All right, guys. Thanks for being here today. See you guys on Monday.